In addition to the articles or certificate of incorporation, there are a number of corporate documents that need to be completed by the company. Now, a lot of these documents are boilerplate, which means that they're standard documents from company to company. And it's really important not to deviate too much from these standard documents because these are things that are typical for most startup companies. The action of incorporator is a document that reflects that the incorporator has filed the certificate or articles of incorporation and has either elected the board and adopted the bylaws. Once the action of the incorporator is signed, then the incorporator's job is finished. Then the board of directors actually ratifies all of the actions of the incorporator in a separate document called a board resolution or a board consent. That board consent also takes care of a lot of the initial administrative duties and matters of the company. For example, deciding who are the officers of the company, the particular form documents that the company is going to enter into, and that the treasurer has the right to open up bank accounts in addition to other matters. The shareholders also have to enter into a consent where they approve of certain things, including any stock option plans if the company has decided that they want to adopt a stock option plan. The next document that's really important are the bylaws of the company. The bylaws of the company are extremely important because that governs the affairs of the company. It sets forth the responsibilities of the shareholders, the directors, and the officers, and determines the particular duties of each of those parties in the company. It also talks about the indemnification of directors and officers, which basically means that any director or officer that has to pay expenses for defending itself in a lawsuit or another action, that the company will reimburse that director and officer under certain circumstances. The bylaws are pretty standard, but there are particular provisions that may need to be tailored for the company. There's also a directors and officers indemnification agreement. The bylaws do discuss indemnification of the directors and officers, as I previously discussed, but those director and officer indemnification agreements provide more details on the terms of indemnification by the company. The company's owners also will likely enter into restricted stock purchase agreements. Restricted stock purchase agreements are agreements that allow the owners of the company to purchase stock in the company, and if companies deem it necessary, they will place vesting schedules on their stock in the company. What this means is that the shareholder of the company receives all of his or her stock, but the company has the right to repurchase the stock if that shareholder doesn't stay with the company or fulfill other terms of that restricted stock purchase agreement. The typical terms of this vesting schedule is that the owner won't receive any vested stock when it signs the purchase agreement and will receive 1/4 of stock vested after a year. Over the next 3 years, a certain portion of the stock vests every month. The vesting schedule is a really important tool for owners who want to make sure that other owners are incentivized to stay active and involved in the business, and that if they don't, that the company can easily buy out their stock, and they don't have dead weight that isn't contributing to the technology or the development of the company. The corporation should also make sure that the owners sign IP assignments and confidential information and invention assignment agreements. The IP assignments assign the intellectual property of the owner that was created before the company was set up. The CIIA assigns the intellectual property of the owner while the owner is involved with the company. It's important to make sure you have both of these documents so that all of the IP that's being created for the company is assigned to the company. The last document that you'll encounter commonly is a stock certificate. And the stock certificate simply evidences the amount of shares that an owner has in a company. You don't have to have a stock certificate. You can have a notice of issuance of stock that simply shows the number of shares of the stockholder. It's just important as the company develops and grows to keep track of all of the stock that's been distributed to different owners in the company. The other document that the corporation needs to fill out is the document that creates the employer identification number for the company. The employer identification number, or the EIN, is a number that's assigned by the IRS, and it's assigned for companies that are going to be hiring employees, or if a company wants to establish a bank account, banks often require it. You can obtain your EIN by going to the irs.gov website and completing the documents on the website to get the number.